Hey everybody, it's Rykard here again, back with another black and white Pokemon analysis. Today, we're going to be discussing the Jawhorn Pokemon known as Ononokusu. So let's get started by taking a look at its typing, abilities, and stats. So first off, Ononokusu is a mono dragon type, which means that it has standard dragon type weaknesses and resistances, which is a great thing because unlike other dragons, he doesn't suffer from a 4 times weakness to ice because normally other dragons are paired with flying. So it's just a 2 times weakness to ice and then a 2 times weakness to dragon for him, which is basically normal, so that's good. As to the abilities, the first one it gets is Rivalry, which is one of my favorite abilities, and what it does is it gives you either an attack increase or an attack decrease depending on the gender of your opponent. If your opponent is the same gender as you, you will get a 1.25 increase in your attack, whereas if you are an opposite gender, I think your attack is decreased by 25%. So, depending on the gender, I guess it could always be a good thing or a bad thing. But since generally Pokemon are a variety of different genders, this ability can have many uses, and you will see why in the first set. As to the next ability, it's known as Mold Breaker, which is a great ability to have because it cancels out abilities of other Pokemon. Mainly in this case, we're going to be using it to exploit Mold Breaker because of other Pokemon having Levitate, because obviously Ononokusu can learn Earthquake and come in on things that normally would resist it because of their Levitate. So that's another cool ability that it has, and it also could work for a variety of other things that your opponent may have as their ability. As for its last ability and its Dreamworld ability, it's known as Tension, which is a kind of unique ability, but it doesn't really have the best uses in the world, but it can prove useful. Basically, it makes it so that if your opponent has a berry, they cannot consume it. So it can be cool if you predict some kind of berry on your opponent, but you can honestly never know what item your opponent is having unless you have like another opponent on your team that has Frisk as their ability or something like that. But really, Rivalry and Mold Breaker kind of are way better than Tension, in my opinion. As for the other stats, it gets 75 HP, coupled with 90 defense and 70 special defense. So it's kind of okay defenses. Mainly, you get 90 physical defense, as I just said, which actually could prove to be very useful because you can kind of make like a bulky dragon with the physical defense being maxed out and max HP, which is kind of cool. And its special defense is also there and useful as well if you want to possibly give it special defense EVs. But they're kind of higher than most other powerful Pokemon that you might encounter, so that's kind of a good thing. As for its attacking stats, it has 147 physical attack. Yeah, that's a lot. And it kind of can just wreck the crap out of everything. So that's probably what you're going to be going with when it comes to the attacking type because its special attack is only 60, so you're probably not going to be using that stat a lot. And also, I believe that its special attack growth is like really bad. Like other Pokemon that have 60 for special attack can get theirs significantly higher than Ononokusu can, so you're going to want to use physical attack. And then lastly, its speed is 97, which is really interesting because of the fact that the other like really powerful dragon known as Sazendora has a speed of 98. So you actually cannot outspeed Sazendora if it's scarfed after one Dragon Dance, which is really unfortunate. And I feel like they put that in there for a reason, just to annoy everyone. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. But aside from that, its speed is actually really good. But with that, let's get started by taking a look at a couple of sets. So for this first set, we're going to give Ononokusu a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, and then we're going to be making use of the ability Rivalry. As for the EVs, we're going to put 4 into HP, 252 into physical attack, and 252 into speed to give you your max speed possible and your max attack possible with a Jolly Nature. And as for the item, we're going to be making use of Leftovers. For the moves, they're kind of going to be a little unique and probably not what you're used to seeing on a lot of different sets, but I will explain why this works in a second. But first, we're going to be using Dragon Dance as a way to not only boost our physical attack, but also boost our speed, making us immensely powerful and really fast. So after a Dragon Dance, this thing can do so much damage, it's not even funny. But with that, we're going to be making use of Attract. And normally people don't even use Attract, but the reason why we're using it is because of the fact that we have the ability Rivalry. So anything you don't get an attack boost on, you can attract. And well, why would you do that? Well, seeing as attract makes it incredibly difficult for your opponent to attack you, that can just be another chance to keep or to Dragon Dance again and get your attack and speed boosted even higher than it already is. So that is kind of like a really useful combination that you can make use of, and it can work out really well if you obviously your opponent is of the opposite gender. You can attract it and then have more chances to set up Dragon Dance. Or if it's the same gender, you just get an attack boost against it anyways, so you don't even need the Dragon Dance, it can just attack. As for its attacking moves, though, the first one we're going to be making use of is Double Chop. And the reason why this is because it's pretty much the same exact move as Dragon Claw, but with less accuracy. But basically, Double Chop is a 40 base power dragon type move, physical dragon move, that hits twice. So with Stab, it's going to be doing 60 per hit and then a total of 120. Whereas Dragon Claw is 80 base power, and then with Stab, it's 120 as well. But the reason we're using Double Chop, even though it only has 90 accuracy as opposed to 100 accuracy, is because of the fact that you can break subs and then hit the opponent after the sub is broken. Also, you can break focus sashes with this, and you can break the sturdy ability as well. So it comes really in handy when you're trying to take out Pokemon, because rather than one hit KOing, you're like two hit KOing it with one move, and that can be really useful. As for its last ability, though, we're going to be using Brick Break as a way to give us pretty much unresisted type coverage, because of the fact that Double Chop is a dragon move, so it's only resisted by Steel, and Brick Break is super effective against Steel. And for the most part, that'll cover the majority of things that you'll be up against. But that's it for this first set. As for this next set, it's kind of a standard set, I guess you would say, so it's not really that exciting like the first one, because the first one showed that Ononokusu can be dragon sexy and attract female dragons, but this one is pretty much the same nature and EVs, but this time we're going to use the ability Mold Breaker to allow us to ignore abilities of other opponents. And then the item we're going to be using is a Lumberry to cure status of any kind. As for the moves, the first one again we're going to be using is Dragon Dance to obviously increase our speed and our attack, and then with that we're going to be making use of Earthquake, Outrage, and Brick Break. The reason why we're using Outrage this time over Double Chop is because we're just going to try to do as much damage to anything as possible, and also because we're packing a Lumberry, which will cure the confusion after Outrage, as well as anything else that might hinder you, such as Burn or Paralysis. So it's a good item to have on a Pokemon that's going to try to sweep, essentially, since only Steels can resist Outrage. But for those Steel types, you obviously have Earthquake and Brick Break as a way to take care of them. This Pokemon unfortunately doesn't learn any good fire moves like most of the other dragons, so that's kind of why it's hindered a little bit. But honestly, you don't really need it that much, because you have other attacking moves that can cover types like that. But this is pretty much just your standard Ononokusu set that's there to do as much damage as possible. Lastly, we kind of have a bulky Dragon Dancing set, so we're going to give Ononokusu an Impish Nature to increase its defense and lower its special attack, and then the ability is going to be Mold Breaker again. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 into HP to give you max HP, and 252 EVs into physical defense to give you max physical defense, plus 4 EVs into attack to give you more point into that stat. And for the item, we're going to be making use of Leftovers to recover HP, obviously, and be able to stay in longer, since obviously you're very physically bulky and can take physical hits. So with this, you're essentially going to be using the same set as the previous one, except Double Chop is going to be substituted for Outrage, just so you're not locked into a move. Though the great thing about this is that it can be really surprising when your opponent just thinks you're going to be there to Dragon Dance and attack, when in reality you could actually take a bunch of physical damage from anything because of your max defense and max HP. So that's really cool and can definitely come in handy if you want to make use of it, because even after a Dragon Dance with no speed investment or attack investment, you still have a lot of attack and a lot of speed to run on, so it's not like you're completely useless in that area. And obviously, since you can take more physical hits, you might even be easily able to get up 2 Dragon Dances without a problem. And obviously your moves will wreck everything because of how high your physical attack is. But that is pretty much it for Ononokusu, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This Pokemon is very powerful, as you can see, though that's honestly all it has going for it. I know that kind of sounds bitter, but I wish it could do more than just attack, I guess, in my opinion. But that's it. So take care, guys, and I will see you in my next video. So goodbye.